Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and people instantly listen to them? And then other people walk in the exact same room and somehow they're invisible? Not because they're less intelligent or less worthy, but because of something deeper happening underneath the surface.
Oh yeah, I know. I noticed that we usually, for some reason, we're constantly reading confidence, insecurity, shame, status, self-worth, and most of us don't even realize it. So there is this strange invisible game happening all around us, and most of us don't even realize we're playing it.
You know the new book I'm reading, What I Wish I Knew About Luck by Tina Sealing? I read something really interesting in there that I thought we could talk about today. I just started it. I'm not that far into it, but she talked about this really interesting game that one of the teachers at Stanford Graduate School of Business. The research shows that identity is not fixed, but rather an ever-changing story influenced by the people around us and the situations we encounter. And she talks about this game called the status game that we all pretty much unknowingly play on an everyday basis. So the status game, according to her, she says, in this exercise, each player is given a standard playing card to hold against their forehead, visible to everyone except themselves. Players are instructed to interact based on each other's perceived status, with aces, kings, and queens representing high status and low-numbered cards, such as 2s and 3s, representing low status. Very quickly, the players figure out their own status. High-status individuals attract attention and praise, with others eagerly listening to what they have to say. Meanwhile, those assigned low statuses are usually ignored and or interrupted. The emotional impact is immediate and palpable, with those with high status feeling empowered and those with low status feeling demoralized. Your story, shaped in large part by how others treat you, influences everything you do. It determines whether you see yourself as a passive puppet pulled by external forces or as a powerful puppeteer shaping the world to your will. The truth is, you have the agency to write and rewrite your story. By consciously crafting the narrative about who you are and the control you have over your future, you can transform how you perceive the world, how you engage with it, and how others treat you. Like the students in our class, the shift in perception positions you to actively create a life aligned with your goals and aspirations. Adjusting your story is not merely an act of imagination, it's a bold step towards charting your path to the future.
Oh wow, so the people with high status cards got attention. People listened to them, included them in your story. And the people with low cards got interrupted, ignored, dismissed. And what is crazy is that people actually out there, they just become the card they thought they were or they thought they are. So this happens quite often. You go to a party and you feel maybe everyone is like dressed nicely, and then you show up to the party and you're not up to par. You
Start feeling insecure,
and you identify yourself with a low card number per se. Oh, I'm a 3. All these people are 8, king, aces, whatever. Right? And I get it, it's just a society thing that we created, right? It's all make-believe. That's the way I see it, because you have to dress nicely, but you show up a little, again, like I said, not up to par, but immediately plays a role in how you're going to show up and how you're going to navigate in the party.
right?
Unless you have this huge ego or a huge bank account. But even if you do, some people are going to judge you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
It's like a tricky game.
exactly. I realized when I was reading this how much this really happens in real life all the time. Not with the cards, but with the stories that we carry about ourselves. How your sense of yourself is influenced by your environment and is always evolving. The invisible status game we're always playing. How insecurities silently shape our lives. And how shame changes the way we show up. Why some people shrink themselves. And how we stop living like the card you think life handed you. I think a lot of people don't realize these stories start really young. And you don't wake up one day and decide like, oh, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough. Usually something teaches you that, right?
Yep, like maybe bullying when you were at school, or rejection when you were younger, or maybe somehow criticism. Growing up poor is a big one.
Yeah.
Being left out, feeling embarrassed about maybe your physique, feeling embarrassed about
Anything.
anything.
You're too skinny, you're too fat, you're too
Uh,
slow.
yeah, you're too white, you're too dark. It's just
Right.
crazy.
Yep. Yeah, trauma's a big one.
A chaotic households.
Yep.
Yeah, that one, of course, gonna shape you, even if you don't want to.
Right. And just general feelings of like being different, right? No matter what it is. And over time, you start unconsciously assigning yourself like this value. And the dangerous part is you stop questioning it and you just start living from this identity that other people have like almost curated for you
Right.
unless you take control of it. I have a really good story that might resonate with a lot of people. Speaking of like bullying or rejection kind of thing. When I was young, I'll never forget this. I was in 5th grade and I still remember the feelings I felt that very day. I was Mr. Brucker's class, and two of my good friends, like we were solid. I found a note on the floor. It was like crumpled up on a little, post-it note kind of thing. Crumpled up on the floor. It was like right around our desks. We were sitting like in a row. And I just picked it up. I happened to pick it up. I don't know why. And I opened it up and I read it. And it was like, I don't remember the exact words, but I remember exactly what I was wearing. I'll never forget it. I had like on this teal and purple and white sweater, like a long sweater, and it had a unicorn on it. I remember, I don't even wear sweaters, and maybe that's why, but I remember that it had like strings coming off like the unicorn hair, the
Yeah.
strings were coming off the sweater. And it was just like cute and I was wearing it and whatever. So I pick up this note and I read something to the effect of like, I can't believe how ugly Kim's sweater is.
So you saw your name on the note?
Yes. And we should something to the effect of like, we should tell her boyfriend, because I had a boyfriend at the time. His name was Jimmy. And he didn't go to that school. He went to another school in the same town.
Yeah.
And it said, like, I wonder if he knows that she dresses like that or something ridiculous. The thing that hurt the most was that it came from my two friends. And also the thing that hurt the most was it was my first interaction with like this rejection feeling, and this criticism that I didn't even realize happened like behind people's backs because I wasn't that type of person. I didn't talk about people behind their backs.
Yeah, let's go back to your emotions for a second, because you're kind of surfing it too quickly. So you picked up the note. You were wearing a cute sweater that at some point you thought the unicorn is
Uggo
cute.
sweater, apparently.
Yeah. But you were, before you wore it, you were okay. I'm just wearing my sweater. It's a unicorn sweater, right?
Mhm.
I just want to get to the point about the story you said about the cards that we all feel like we get assigned with. So your best friends write a note about you, about your sweater, and right after you picked up the note and you read it, your world shattered.
Right. Yeah, it was like, I didn't know the world was like that. I was naive to that. I didn't realize people talked about you behind your back or judged you or anything like that. I was a child. I loved my friends. I was so happy. I was a good kid. I had lots of friends. I was confident. I was secure with who I was. I didn't care about clothes. I didn't care about how I dressed or what I looked like. I remember I wore sweatpants up until that point. I didn't care about any of that stuff.
So how do you feel after? I just want to go a little deeper in here, because again, that was a moment that shaped you
Mhm.
for life. Yeah, and this happened to all of us at some point. We go through something in life. It changed the way we perceive the world.
Yeah, I was in shock. And it did change the way I perceived the world
Yeah.
because up until that point, I thought people were just nice and your friends were just your friends and they're always kind to you. And, people aren't mean. I didn't see mean in the world. I didn't see that in the world.
And what made you change after that? How were you after you read that note?
I just remember the shock of it and the awareness from that point going forward that people can hurt you. And I honestly never experienced that before that point.
Yeah, created some sort of a new identity
Yeah.
moving forward.
Yeah. From then on, I was like, I started changing my clothes for sure. You know, my mom will always tell me, like, yeah, you wore sweatpants till like 5th grade. You didn't want anything to do with like jeans. Like, forget it. I didn't want jeans or anything else. I just wanted comfortable sweatpants because I didn't know people cared about that stuff.
Yeah, people underestimate how much shame changes your actual behavior.
Right.
It changes your body language, your tone, your eye contact.
Yep. I became hyper aware of other people's opinions, and I started becoming really self-conscious about things. And that's when I started like changing my clothes, caring about my hair and what I looked like. Up until that point, I really didn't care about those things because I was just genuinely showing up as myself, having fun and, you know, playing with my friends and games and school and whatever. I was just being authentic to myself. And then I felt like after that occurred, I had to show up as somebody else. Like I had to.
Yeah, 'cause shame changed your energy.
Right.
It changed your personality. And people underestimate how much shame changes your behavior. All that affects you.
Yeah, my confidence for sure.
Yeah.
And it changed how I showed up for sure about like how they say like how much space you take up in a room.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't show up the same confident way to a room, you know.
Yep.
I made myself less visible.
Less visible, yeah, because you weren't feeling confident.
Right.
So you started trying not to be noticed.
Exactly. Yeah.
You try not to say the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm.
You were even questioning your own thoughts moving forward.
Oh yeah, you start watching what you say, watching what you wear, watching what you do in front of people. Just analyzing everything you do before you do it rather than just showing up as your authentic self.
Yeah, have a huge impact in all of us because we actually feel we become smaller because of those things.
Exactly. And I know that that is a pivotal moment from my childhood where I started showing up smaller than who I used to show up as.
Yep. And the crazy thing, Kim, is that people respond to that energy. Mm-hmm. We all do, right? When we see someone like that.
Yeah.
You know, when someone is shy, when someone is insecure, their tones, the way they look at you, they bring this aura that you can read. I'm really good at reading people.
Yeah.
I hate when people are talking to me, but they're not looking into my eyes.
Well, I don't think people do that because they're bad or evil or intentionally doing that. I think we don't realize that we're doing it because, you know, humans constantly mirror confidence and uncertainty.
That's right. That makes sense.
But I remember up until that point, again, I didn't think about that stuff. I didn't think about judging people by their clothes or anything.
So again, like when you picked up the note, it's just right in there when you read it. It activated or embedded a code of shame in your brain.
Right.
After all this year, you still remember that.
Right.
And you remember how that affected you and how you were carrying yourself for so many years, and that became your personality. We don't even notice it.
Yeah.
We just think that, oh, I picked up the wrong sweater. They hated it. They're my friends. They're talking about me. But now you have like this inner battle, like they're my friends. Why they shouldn't be talking about me? Is the sweater that ugly?
Oh. Yeah, I never confronted them. I never told my mom. I never told anybody because I was embarrassed and I felt shame that A, my friends were talking about me. B, I was wearing something that people didn't like. And C, I just felt so bad that people judged that way. But I just remember feeling this incredible amount of shame. And I was like, I will never discuss this story with anybody or like tell anybody what happened because I was so embarrassed that happened, even though only those two girls knew.
At some point, you even have to be fake because you feel betrayed. And they're being fake, even though when they wrote that. But the thing is, sometimes we do, right, stuff, not in a way to hurt others. It was just maybe an observation. But the way they did it, they didn't mean to hurt you. But of course, they didn't want you to see the note. But sometimes they wrote it maybe just as a thought.
It was bitchy.
As of an expression of,
It wasn't nice. No, it was not meant as just a thought. It was meant like they were talking shit
Me
for
too.
sure. Yeah. And I know that, right after I moved to the neighboring town, but I know that I showed up so differently to that new town because of that event. Like, I know that it shaped how I showed up. And in the new town, I struggled to make connections
Yeah.
from then on because before that event, I was friends with everybody. And I was like, I don't want to say like Mrs. Popularity, but like I had friends of all classes,
Yeah.
right? Like
Hmm.
high, middle, low class. I didn't care. I didn't see that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just friends with everybody and I liked everybody and I showed up as genuinely as I could. And when I moved to the new school, I didn't. I didn't show up like that. And I struggled from then on through high school to make solid connections. I
Right.
had friends, but they weren't solid connections. And another really quick story about how shaming shapes you or something perceived as shaming. I'll never forget that, this was like the 80s, and my dad was like a heavy smoker, and my parents were divorced. And so I would stay over his house on Thursday nights, and Friday morning he would bring us to school. And he would smoke in the house and in the car. So like I must have reeked like a smoke bomb, you
Yeah.
know? And so he was driving us to school on that Friday morning, and we went and stopped and picked up one of my friends that lived in the neighborhood. And I go in her house to get her. 'Cause this was the day before cell phones,
Yeah.
days before cell phones.
Yeah.
I go in her house to get there, and her mom's getting her ready for school. And again, this was like fifth grade, maybe even fourth, I'm not sure. And so I walk in, and her mom was like, "Whoa." And she's like waving her hand in front of her nose. She's like, "You smell like smoke, like big time," or something like that. And
That's so bad.
oh, and I again had no concept. And
Yeah.
now I'm blatantly aware of those smells, but like I didn't know that I was walking around smelling like that because my dad was smoking. I had no idea. But I'll never forget like the shame I felt in that moment, and that was something I couldn't control, right?
Yeah. A lot of kids, back in the 80s, a lot of kids were exposed to that. But, of course, you don't want to show yourself like, oh,
Yeah. But so then after that, I was like hyper aware of how I smell. And I was just super embarrassed to go to school on Fridays because I didn't want to smell like smoke. And I would hide under the covers at my dad's house in the morning, like just to try to keep the smoke off of me. And until we were ready to go, I'd take the blanket off and then go in the car and just
yeah.
like hyper aware of it because I felt so embarrassed and shameful
Yeah.
that I smelled like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that happens to a lot of other kids too. But some other kids, they don't care. Like, oh, yeah, it's my dad smoking. You probably
Right.
thought that too. But the thing is, rejection, we all take rejection in a different way.
Yeah, I felt less than, and
Mhm.
I felt like, I wanted to hide and worrying what people thought and how,
Yeah.
and that shame, like I started internalizing all of that,
Yeah. Like, we don't like to be put in a box.
No. Well, we want to
Yeah.
be accepted.
They want to
And
be
I didn't, and
Yeah.
I felt, now I was different. I
Yeah.
was the outsider now. I stunk like smoke.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just felt like there was something wrong with me.
Yeah. I bet.
And I think a lot of people listening probably know exactly what this feels like, especially if they've struggled with depression, anxiety, trauma, bullying, rejection, failure, insecurity, all those things. You start feeling like I'm the low card in the game, right? You're the 2 or the 3.
Yeah. The stories become self fulfilling.
Mhm.
What's dangerous is once you believe you're a low status person, you start acting accordingly. So, you
Exactly.
hesitate, you overthink, you stay quiet. We avoid opportunities. We don't put ourselves out there anymore.
Mhm.
Or we just go out there with a huge uncertainty and feeling so insecure.
Yeah, you settle. You start settling for things.
And another thing that we tolerate disrespect.
Yeah. And life starts reinforcing the story. Not because the story was true, though, because none of those things were true about me,
Mhm.
but because I started living from it. So when I moved to the new town, I'm acutely aware of all these insecurities now that I have brewing because these people brought them to my attention, whereas before I was not even aware of them. But now I'm like hyper vigilant about all the things, right? How I look, how I smell, what I'm wearing.
Yep.
And so I start kind of backing away from people and kind of building up these walls because A, I don't want them talking bad about me. B, I don't want to disappoint anyone. C, I'm just like embarrassed. So I start living this life where I just want to be accepted and I'm not being true to myself.
Yeah. And that's why this is bigger than confidence. Affects relationships, careers, friendships, business opportunities, leadership, everything.
It does, because before I would have classified myself as a leader. And it's taken me a long time to break out of that. It's taken me like 30-ish years to kind of break out of that and start reclaiming who I used to be,
Exactly.
who I was born to be. But my whole life for 35 years, I avoided opportunities and I didn't put myself out there. And I stayed in this kind of like shell of who I was. And I know that I did not give the best side of me to the world. And so the really sad thing about it is I never stopped to question why I changed. I just accepted that as this is who I am and this is how it should be. I never realized that those incidences were shaping who I was becoming.
Our identities get shaped basically at school. It's a big chunk of it, right? And from our parents also.
And I think that so many people, I think everybody struggles with this to some degree, right?
Mm-hmm.
In different areas of their life. Like these incidences that happen to us through somebody else, we're allowing them to shape who we are.
I think rebuilding your life starts with realizing you may have been conditioned, but you're not permanently assigned that role.
Exactly. So when I became aware of those incidences that had shaped my life, I realized that I needed to get back to who I was before that, right?
Right.
So over the past years, when I've been doing all this inner work and addressing all these issues, I realized that I have to shift that. And changing that stuff happens through small moments and new experiences and speaking differently about myself and showing up to a room differently than I did before. I have to carry myself differently, right? And rebuild the trust that I have with myself. So it takes a lot of showing up differently.
The truth is, people are often responding to the identity you're unconsciously projecting. And we don't even notice it when we're just bringing these insecurities.
Yeah, I will say that I've always known that I am greater than how I was putting myself out into the world. I've always had that inner knowingness.
Yep.
But I didn't know that those stories, those incidences were holding me back and keeping me stuck. I didn't know that that's where I stopped.
Right.
You know, like I didn't know that those caused me to retreat,
Right.
if you will.
Right. But the thing is, you noticed like, hey, no.
Yeah.
Something went wrong, have to do something about it. You didn't let that identity to be part of you forever. Right. So you knew like, no, I have to change. I have to make a real shift here in my life. And the sad thing, Kim, is that a lot of people, they just embrace that as their identity.
It's who they are.
And
Yeah.
they don't do anything about it.
I started seeing like a pattern showing up in my life over and over throughout the years of I would hold myself back from being or doing something that I really wanted to do, whether it was like in business or with friends or whatever, just showing up like how I really wanted to show up, but I would hold myself back. And I started seeing how it was derailing my life and like the goals I wanted to achieve.
Exactly.
And so after I noticed that pattern, it was almost like I couldn't unsee the pattern.
Right.
And I thought to myself, I have to do everything in my power to change that.
Change it. Yeah.
And so I knew that meant like working on confidence and self-esteem and putting myself out there in situations that I hate doing because I feel exposed.
Right.
But I knew that was the only way through it.
The only way. Yeah.
I was never going to get to the other side of it if I didn't push through those feelings.
Right. In life, it gets easier, right, when you start working on those issues.
Right.
Because then now you're kind of basically finding yourself again.
Yes.
Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why was it afraid?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to wear the clothes I like. Now I'm just gonna
Now I'm
be
gonna go buy myself a unicorn sweater.
so you now you are finding basically the real you,
Yeah,
right? Because the truth is, people are often responding to the identity you're unconsciously projecting.
exactly.
Maybe the goal isn't becoming the loudest person in the room. Maybe the goal is simply no longer walking into rooms believing you're the low card.
Because a lot of people are living their entire lives based on stories that were handed to them when they were too young to even question them. And maybe rebuilding your life starts there, not becoming someone fake, but by finally realizing you were never that low status card that you thought you were.
That's right.
If this episode resonated with you or helped you in any way, we'd love for you to share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to go deeper, we created something for you. Head over to kenandkimpodcast.com where you can get access to our full library of rebuild guides. These are step-by-step tools designed to help you actually apply what we talk about here. And if you want to connect with us, join our private Facebook community, The Rebuild Room, where we're having real conversations about rebuilding your life. We'll see you in the next episode.